While I am recording the audio for this episode of the Enshittification series, I am currently encoding the video file for the Microsoft Enshittification video, and I gotta say, for a 3 GB video, only taking an hour is not that bad. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do this one overnight. But either way, listen, the reason I'm even pointing this out at the beginning of this video is to show you how fast I'm actually trying to get these videos out. Because I know for a fact that these might taper off. I understand that, but I hope you're really in for the long haul. And if you are, then welcome to the Google Enshittification video. And if you haven't seen the Microsoft Enshittification video and you are just getting in on the series on this one, you should totally check out the previous episode if you are into this kind of content. Like I said, it's about 41 minutes long. I'm not sure how long this one will be, but yeah, I just wanted to throw this in here real quick. Anyways, let's start with the video. Okay, Google. What do I have to say about Google? My God. You thought Microsoft was willing to just burn goodwill for no fucking reason. Google is a company that absolutely must. It is required for Google to burn through as much goodwill as humanly possible. And let me explain why I say that in the first place, because I know exactly what you're thinking. Techmo, they revolutionized the internet. Techmo, they helped out with YouTube. Techmo, think about how you can search for things. Things must be real good right about now because of how well searching things works. Well, let me tell you something. I'm not fucking impressed. I'm really not. I am not impressed with where browser-based technology is, and I'm definitely not impressed with how search engines function, and especially I am not impressed with the type of shit and the precedent that Google has set for the rest of the tech industry, and especially the tech industry that has anything to do with web-based development or web-based application or anything along the lines of web-based anything. Google has absolutely fucking trounced the market in terms of anything search related. I would guarantee to you, actually no, let me pull up the statistic. Alright, so as of April of 2025, here is the global web browser market share. So we have Chrome at 68.38%, Safari, which is Apple's version of Chrome, aka their own web browser, at 17.09%. Now I have to ask, how much of that is iPhone users as well? So a lot of those must be iPhone users. That has to be the case. Edge is 4.92%. Firefox is 2.46%. Samsung Internet is 2.23%. Opera is 2.01%, and others are 2.91%. So here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. Now, obviously, I did talk about Chrome having 68.38% of the global market share. What I didn't account for is the fact that I'm not even talking about just Chrome itself when I add up the rest of the numbers on this chart. Now, I hear you say, whoa, Techmo, what the fuck do you mean you're gonna add up some numbers on this chart? It very clearly states that Chrome only has 68.38% of the global market share. Yes, that's right. Chrome does, but did I ever talk about Chromium technology? The thing is that Chromium is the basis for Chrome, and Chromium is also implemented in Edge, Samsung Internet, and I'm going to lump Opera in there because of Opera GX and whatever the fuck Opera AI bullshit web browser thing that they have for crypto nerds. Whatever they have for that too. I'm lumping all of that in there. So, here's what you actually end up with. Anything that utilizes Google as a back end or a front end, now that boosts this number up to 77.54%. Because remember, in the olden days, Internet Explorer used to be Microsoft's web browser. That went under. Internet Explorer is obviously not a thing. It hasn't been a thing for years. And guess what? They stopped doing their own browser-based technology, and instead they opted to use Chromium. And the same thing with Samsung Internet. It used to be their own thing, and then they adopted Chromium. And Opera is also switching to that. Opera is not just Opera in and of itself, it's not what it used to be. Opera is now some weird Opera Google Chromium bastard child. I don't even know how to describe it. I'm gonna be real, I do not know how to describe what is going on with Opera, but I think you understand exactly where I'm getting at with this. Google, in some way, shape, or form, holds the market cap for basically any and all sort of technology that's used for browsing or any sort of web application. Now, I see you raising your hand back there, and I am going to address exactly what you are thinking, because I know exactly what you're thinking. Techmo, this is only for web browsing. How is this that big of a problem? And also, not only how big of a problem is this, how does this affect me if I use something along the lines of Firefox or Safari? And I am so glad you asked that. Do you have Steam? Chromium based. Do you use Discord? Chromium based. I bet you didn't even know that those two were based off of Chromium, but guess what? They are. So, in some way, shape, or form, Google is using its software to basically take control of small aspects of your life utilizing their technology. And the more and more broke as fuck their technology gets, the worse and worse your experience becomes utilizing other platforms. Now, I'm not saying that Steam was that much better. Okay, it kind of was actually a lot better before Chromium was their big sort of pipe, but Chromium has kind of decimated Steam for a long time, and when I say a long time, I mean there were core functions of the application that just straight didn't work, and in some cases, still don't work. And again, I will say the same thing about Discord. There are a lot of just random Chrome-related problems that go on with Discord. You ever stop to consider and ask yourself why Discord, Steam, and Google Chrome use so much RAM? It's because Chromium just sucks. That's it. It just sucks. I don't know how else to put it. I really, and I'm being legit, I don't know how else to put it, except for Chromium sucks. And the thing is that if you're an Android user, you're probably stuck with Chrome, because everything on Android is also Chromium based. Yeah, you didn't think about that now, did you? Or what about Chrome OS? Which is just kind of Chrome as an operating system. The operating system itself is Chromium based. How the fuck did they do that? I don't know, but I'm not gonna question it. They just kind of did. And so Chrome can also encompass a lot of things. It could encompass Chrome OS. It could encompass Steam. It could encompass a lot of shit. It really can. And so trying to separate Chrome from everything else is kind of fucking difficult, and that might honestly also boost this statistic, because I don't know if it's also just Chromium-based technology in and of itself that's also thrown in there, or if it's just Chrome. But either way, the point is that Google has a stakehold in basically every single web app that you use in some way, shape, or form. And I haven't even gotten into the really juicy, funny shit yet. I've only talked about Chrome. Wait until I talk about their search engine, Google. Okay, now let's talk about search engine market share. Let's start from the bottom and start going to the top. So you have DuckDuckGo. Now, DuckDuckGo is a privacy-based sort of search engine, which you can kind of debate whether or not it's actually that private, but it's a lot more private than, say, Google or Yahoo or Bing or any other type of search engine. And keep in mind, this statistic is from February of 2024, so it is about a year out of date. But either way, it's as up-to-date as I could find. So, again, market share for each search engine, you have DuckDuckGo at 0.53%. So 0.53% of all searches done in any sort of search engine were done through DuckDuckGo. Now, underneath that is Baidu, and Baidu is a Chinese search engine. So this is the more predominant search engine inside of China, and not many places outside of China use Baidu. I've used Baidu a couple of times just for shits and giggles, but honestly, it's something. I'll just say that it's something. But anyways, so Baidu has a market share of 0.77%. And that is within the entire population of China that utilizes the internet. You gotta think, China is a country with, I want to say 1.6 billion people? That's a lot of fucking people. And so, going up on that list, you have Yahoo. And Yahoo has a share of 1.08% of the market share. And underneath that, you have Yandex. Now, Yandex is a Russian search engine, and somehow it has more than Baidu. I don't know what countries, aside from Russia, utilize Yandex, but I would imagine that there's actually quite a few people who do use Yandex for very specific types of searches, aka if you're looking for a piracy website and you decided not to use DuckDuckGo. Hey, this is not me advocating for piracy, by the way. I'm just saying I think that's where people go. But either way, Yandex has 1.84% of the global market share. And then we have the second highest utilized search engine, Bing. Now, if you use Bing, I honestly think you're a little Bing in the head, but I'm not getting into that, okay? I'm not gonna diss on Bing. Alright? I'm not gonna diss on... Well, I'm gonna diss on Bing, but I'm not gonna diss on you for using Bing. Either way, look. Bing has a market share of 3.31%. 3.31% for Microsoft's shit, I mean, search engine. Do I need to point at the elephant in the room? Everything that I have been talking about with DuckDuckGo, with Baidu having a decimal point percentage of a market share, and then Yahoo and Yandex having almost an equivalent-ish market share, and then you have Bing with a one-digit market share, and that is the second largest browser. The most utilized browser is Google at 91.62% of the market share. Think about that. I'm not saying that there aren't other alternatives, but the fact that Google has practically streamlined search engines down to a science is fucking insane. And it's even more fucking insane what I'm about to talk about, because Google, in this day and age, is unusable, and somehow they still hold on to that type of market share. So you might be wondering, Techmo, you use Google, how are you going to sit here and say that it's unusable? First off, shut the fuck up. I have the talking stick here, okay? I have the talking stick. I didn't give you the talking stick. You're not allowed to criticize me for my actions. I'm only allowed to criticize you for your actions. That's how this works. I have the microphone. I'm the one emulating your fuck-ass voice. I'm sorry, that felt a little mean-spirited. Look, the point is that, yes, I do use Google. I'm also starting to really fucking regret using Google, but I also don't know what the fuck am I going to use? DuckDuckGo? Or like DuckDuckGo? Yeah, okay. Or I could use Baidu. Yeah, let me use the Chinese internet. Like, or Yahoo, which sucks, or Yandex, which sucks, or Bing, which Omega sucks. It's like every other one of these services is so unbelievably shitty that Google is like your best option, even though that one is also garbage. So, Google, right? Let's talk a little bit about that search engine, and let's talk a little bit more about Google. So Google not only has a monopoly on the search engine, and Google not only has a monopoly on the browser, but they also have a monopoly on the web traffic, and we'll get into that later. But focusing specifically on Google as a search engine, Google, the search engine, not the company, is... Okay, let me ask you a question. And I'm going to be doing a little bit of a back in my day little skit for this as well. But when you used Google back in the late 90s and the early 2000s and even up until the mid 2000s and the 2010s, when you were using Google, how did it work? Well, honestly, I don't know all of the ins and outs of that kind of tech. It just worked, right? It just worked. And it worked fine, and it was good at its job. However, nowadays, you have a problem with Google in which everything is buried under SEO, and you might be wondering, SEO? What is SEO? You can't just throw around a 3-letter acronym and expect us to not know that it's not a US government agency, right? So, SEO, which is not a United States government agency, might I add, SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. It's a bunch of parameters that basically boost you to the top of search engine results. So, for example, Facebook has amazingly spectacular SEO, but an article talking about Facebook would probably have exponentially worse SEO than Facebook as the website itself. And this SEO problem is I shouldn't say a problem, but this SEO market is a very, very, very lucrative market. People will hire entire firms to check up on SEO and to try to boost as much of its search engine optimization out there to make sure that people know that it will be the top result. And so that way, it just lands at the top of Google. Again, Facebook has probably giant teams within that company that are generating good SEO. And the same thing with Microsoft, and the same thing with basically every tech company. They are the masters of SEO. However, something I do need to talk about is the fact that what this does, and this is where it does become a problem, what having spectacular and amazing SEO does is it pushes other results that might be useful for the end user further and further and further and further down, and makes it practically impossible to search for very specific subjects that you are looking for. Like, for example, I am very interested in, at some point, data mining the video game Wild Assault. You have seen me play this game in a couple of episodes, and especially in the last episode that I just made, talking about the Enshittification of Windows. And when it comes to that game, I know for a fact that it is possible to reverse engineer Unreal Engine 5 games to some extent. I am aware that that is possible, I just don't know how to, and so what do? I consult the almighty Google, and Google, well, one, there's a lot of just random SEO things. I got things for Assault, I got things for being wild, I got things for Wild Assault, I got a random data mining tool for Quake 3? Like, there were a bunch of things that I had gotten when I was looking up the data mining process for Wild Assault. And then underneath it, there were a bunch of forum posts and Reddit posts in which people were just, I don't know, talking about Wild Assault in general and not really talking about data mining the game. Even though I do know for a fact that data mining the game is absolutely possible. I am aware of this. And again, I'm not able to find these results because of the SEO problem going on with it. And okay, I need to address the big elephant in the room as well. it's not just SEO and the fact that you can basically pay your way on up to be at the top of Google. Google is filled with ads. I do need to mention that. If you're not using an ad blocker, I am not telling you, by the way, that you should use an ad blocker on our good old platform, our good old buddy old platform, YouTube or Google. I would not want to suffocate their advertising efforts or anything along those lines. But let's say that you were utilizing some type of an ad blocker for your web browser. Well, you actually block a lot of the search engine ads that are thrown at you by Google. And the same thing goes for, well, it used to, but not anymore, whatever the fuck Gemini is. Oh god, we're getting into that. So, let's talk about Gemini and its impact on the search engine experience. So, again, back in the day, right? Back in the day, utilizing a search engine was easy as hell, and it made sense. You would go into either the search bar or the address bar, and if you're really, really old, just the search bar. But you could either go into the search bar or the address bar and type in a parameter. And this parameter, I don't know, would be something along the lines of, let me think of a very common parameter that somebody would probably have. How to fix a flat tire, right? Okay, so you look up how to fix a flat tire, and it would normally just pull up a bunch of forums and a bunch of posts and a bunch of like videos and stuff explaining how to fix a tire. Well, nowadays, like I said, with SEO, you can just buy, if you are the Kia Corporation or the Toyota Corporation or the Chevy Corporation or any of these other car manufacturers, you can just pay your way up to the top and basically use Google as your advertising without having an ad in Google's search results. And like I said, this is a really bad thing, but again, we're getting off topic. So you would essentially search for how to fix a flat tire. Now again, search engine optimization, that's one thing. What we are running into with Gemini is a genuine problem because a lot of it is, okay, so there are three aspects to this. One, Gemini is really bad technology. It sucks. It's not good. It doesn't know what it's doing. It doesn't know how to do its job, and it's pulling most of its answers from Reddit, I would imagine. Or possibly, if you really wanted to get gross about it, Grok. It's probably pulling up Grok posts in some cases. But either way, so you have Gemini, which is already bad software, and then you have the fact that it can change its parameters and change its output anytime it wants. And then, and that's just specifically to try to appeal to you, the user. And then, and so that's two parts of it, right? That right there is just two parts of the problem. The third part is on you. I know that you use that AI overview. I'm aware that you are doing that. Stop doing that and learn how to search, even if you have to deal with the bullshit SEO problem that I talked about earlier. Stop using Gemini's AI overview. Stop it. Stop. That's all I have to say. So, there is, again, these three problems of it's not good, it tries to tailor itself to the user, and the user a lot of the time falls for it because they don't know how to search anymore, or they never knew how to search in the first place. And this leads to some really gullible motherfuckers believing in some really insane shit. So, for example, I am going to pull up the example that I used earlier, which is data mining Wild Assault. I looked up how to data mine Wild Assault. That was a real inquiry that I had made. And let's see what it pulled up on 3 separate occasions. So this first result that was generated by this AI was generated about 4 days ago. Data mining Wild Assault likely refers to extracting data from the game Wild Assault, a third-person shooter where players data mine for game assets, secrets, or other information. Data mining can be done by players to get models, find unused content, or learn more about future updates, as seen in a discussion about character models. By the way, I've seen that discussion. It was a random Steam post in which a guy vague dropped a bunch of information, and a developer said, "Ooh, cool, we got a data miner." That's what that discussion was, in case you were wondering what it was. It can also refer to game developers using data to balance gameplay or improve the game. Okay, so it very clearly has a very fundamental misunderstanding of what data mining is. Data mining is indeed the process of extracting data from a game. That is the one thing that it got correctly here, and it also stitched together in the middle of the sentence that data mining can be done by players to get models or find unused content or to learn about future updates. And that is true. That is one aspect of data mining, but data mining can entail multiple different things. There are different forms of data mining and there are different methods of data mining, and it very clearly doesn't understand that. And it also very clearly thinks from this one result here that you are intended to data mine, that this is what the developers intended. The developers wanted you to data mine the game and to find all of their unused content. Yeah, because that's what developers want. That is absolutely a thing that developers always have in mind and say, you know what? I'm going to leave this for the data miners. I know most developers don't do that. There are some base ones that do, but there are most that do not. Okay, so that was Generation 1. Generation 2 is the following. Data mining Wild Assault is likely a misunderstanding or misspelling of Wild Assault, an early access anthro-themed tactical shooter game. Some players have been looking into the game's data, in parentheses data mining, possibly to find information about future content, unfinished models, or game mechanics, like what was found with a data mined model for the character Meerkat. There is no character named Meerkat, there is a Meerkat character though. But we'll get into that later. The phrase can also be a playful combination of the game's name and act of data mining, referring to the aggressive gameplay or assault aspect of the game itself. This video shows a review of Wild Assault and its gameplay. Okay, so, again, it understood that data mining is used to get the game's data into a readable format. Like, that is a thing that they did actually get right on here. But also, they're taking a little bit more of a step backwards because, like, over here, right, at least they were saying that data mining Wild Assault was referring to extracting the data from the game Wild Assault, which is, yeah, that's what data mining is. But over here, it's saying that it's part of the name, and even just associated a random fucking, like, name to a character who wasn't out at the time, and, like, I don't know. I don't know where to even start with this one. And that was generated one day after the previous one. That was one day after the previous one. Also, you assault the game by data mining it. I find that to be kind of funny. I find that to be like a very funny implication by the end of that statement. But okay, so enough fucking around, right? Enough fucking around. What about the other result that this AI just decided to pull straight out of its ass? Alright, let's take a look at this one. This one was generated while I was recording the audio for this video, and when I say that, I mean literally 3 minutes ago I generated this one. Data mining Wild Assault refers to the analysis of game data and player information for the tactical shooter game Wild Assault. This can involve examining public data like player stats, which can be tracked using services like PlayTracker, as well as analyzing in-game content like character ability metas and developer communications. Reddit. That's just where it ended. That's awesome. That's where it ended on the first paragraph. Just Reddit. A recent example is a community interest in data mining to see unfinished models such as those for a meerkat character, which may hint at future content. You can watch this video for a review of Wild Assault. Okay, again, the meerkat character is named Yuli. And Yuli has already come out. Yuli came out on the game's launch. This is old information. It's still skimming from this random fucking Steam discussion that is like the top fucking result for data mining the game. Again, because the developer called out the fact that we had a data miner. And it's like, okay, so now we went from data mining is extracting the game's information and putting it into a readable format, and then it went to the same type of result. Now it's saying use play tracker to track people's play data while, like, analyzing character ability metas. That's not data mining! We went from 1 step back to like 5 steps back on this fucking equation here, right? We've gone from y equals mx plus b to just y equals m. That's where we're at. So, let me throw this at you, right? Let me throw this question at you. What I use, the examples that I use, are admittedly very silly sort of, results, right? Those are some very silly parameters that I threw in there, and my search indices were literally about data mining a video game. Okay, now what if somebody was looking up the symptoms of a stroke and Gemini got that wrong, and this person decided to follow some advice that Gemini gave it for trying to alleviate a stroke? And for some reason, Gemini just omitted the fact that the first thing you should do is try to call 911. And if you can't do it, then hopefully you have a friend there that will notice and try to call 911 for you, right? Like, that is... okay, I'm gonna have to add, like, a little thing here. This is another take, because I was in the middle of recording the audio for this section, and my phone was dialing the authorities. So, oops, my bad. But either way, okay, so using the stroke example again, and this time without calling the authorities or calling anyone a part of emergency response, so let me pose this question to you, right? What if it just omitted certain details that you should do when a person is, I don't know, having a seizure or having a stroke or something along those lines, and you look it up, and then you see the AI overview, and you're like, fuck it, you know what? We're gonna go with the AI overview, and then guess what? Your friend is dead. You just killed your friend by doing that, right? Think about how you would have to live with yourself. Now, obviously, that's a very extreme example, but some people will probably actually rely on this AI overview for medical advice, and that's scary. I can't hone in on how scary of a thing something like that is. And the reason I say this, right, is because you don't fucking know where it's pulling that information from. You don't know where it's trying to pull random information regarding medical advice. You don't know where that's coming from. It could be coming from the Mayo Clinic. It could be coming from WebMD. It could be coming from, like, a CDC peer-reviewed journal. Or it could just straight up be coming from, like, a random post that was generated by Grok and then was, like, posted on Twitter, and then somebody else decided to take that tweet and then post that on Reddit. Like, you never know what the fuck is going on with any of these AI systems. You don't know where any of this information is coming from. And again, that is genuinely horrific when you have people who are, you know, taking that sort of advice from a general AI overview that Google said was reputable because they made that overview. Like, I don't know where else to go with that. Now, I have heard some people with the position surrounding this saying something along the lines of, well, this is just Darwin's Law. And if you think about it, this is what we in the industry like to call natural selection, survival of the fittest. You know, if you're not fit to survive, then maybe you shouldn't. And I don't think I need to explain why that is an irrational way of looking at the situation. Again, especially when what we're talking about with this AI overview bullshit is a company that is trying to utilize its tech to feed people random bouts of information and then claim that it's reputable. And then if you happen to fall for it because you're a dunce and you decided to read the AI overview, then I'm sorry, you shouldn't be... Listen, I understand. I think you should be punished for being dumb sometimes, right? Like, acting stupid, yeah, there are consequences to your actions, but those consequences shouldn't literally be your life, right? I understand that maybe a person who sees an AI overview say, huff some blue paint, I understand that people would look at that and be like, that's a little weird, but if it's something along the lines of, yeah, you're gonna want to get this specific shot which has this in it, and it turns out that no, that's not what you're looking for, then you just, like, it's like getting a polio vaccine to get the, or to treat the measles, right? You use the specific measles vaccine to combat the measles, and you use the polio vaccine to combat the polio. The point that I'm trying to make is that a lot of people will fall for some type of misinformation, whether it be medical or engineering or literally anything, right? There's the fact that we basically just invented the misinformation machine and Google is parroting it as its paragon of technology, that's scary. That is genuinely scary. And in some cases, it's just wrong. In some cases, it's legitimately just wrong. And I have unironically heard a lot of people say that they have replaced their regular search engine usage with something along the lines of Gemini 3. That is psychotic behavior. If you ask me, that is psychotic. That's like going into a library and then instead of looking for the book yourself, you decide, or hell, even using a map of the library that has an an index full of books, you just rely on some random guy to go pull out some random book from some random shelf and then give it to you and then tell you, yeah, this is the book, man. Like, that is essentially what's going on here. And the fact that we are so genuinely... How do I put it? The fact that we are getting to the point in which people are unwilling to search for information, instead they will just believe any random thing that they're told, not even by another person, mind you, but by a machine. By a machine that is incapable of thinking, of having any sort of thought process, of having any sort of emotional input, that is unable to recognize real speech. Like, we essentially are trusting a giant algorithm that is good at pattern recognition and pattern recognition only, and I would even wager that's not even the case. We're trusting that over actually searching for information. I don't know how else to explain it, aside from we are literally going out of our way to dumb ourselves down to use this type of tech. Now look, I think it's very obvious what I'm trying to say and what the major crux of my argument is. And that being, you should probably honestly trust real people more than some random machine that was engineered specifically by a corporation that is trying to make as much money as humanly possible based off of your search inquiries, your search results, your web traffic, and everything else that you input into the internet. I think that it's a lot better to actually sit down and read a book about a subject like, I don't know, North Korea or something, even if that person might or probably does have some type of bias against or for North Korea. Like, it's probably better that you try to actually refine your own thought processes and your own filter for information. It's probably best that that's what you try to do instead of, again, having Google go out of its way to essentially sell you a result. and sell you a result that it generated off the whim, off of some source that you can't verify it's from. You can't verify what it pulled from. Again, with the Wild Assault example, it pulled from a bunch of random things and one Steam discussion that was irrelevant to the rest of the topic of data mining, and even got some information in there incorrect. So I do think, yeah, it's better to get your information from a real person who, I don't know, knows something about the subject. And if they don't, then that's fine. You can filter out that information, right? You can skim through a forum post and filter out that kind of information. And plus, isn't it just kind of fun to search for information by yourself? Isn't it kind of fun to actually do something like that? To go on your own rabbit hole, to go on your own deep dive, to try to learn for yourself? You have to be a curious being. I'm being genuine there. Education is fun. Even if it's self-education, you should be excited to learn. You should be excited to know something new about a subject you might not have known something about. And generative AI, especially Gemini and ChatGPT and these other things, which I'll make an entirely separate video talking about those, but it doesn't matter. Like you don't the information that they output straight just doesn't matter. It doesn't fucking it's extrapolated from a bunch of random sources that you can't verify the validity of. Listen, if somebody told you that it's okay, if somebody told you that it was a perfectly safe, and I'm being genuine here, if somebody told you it was perfectly safe to get a king-size Sharpie and shove it down your urethra, would you fucking do that? Because an AI told you to do that? If an AI told you to do that, would you sit there and say, this is actually good medical advice, let me go buy a king-size Sharpie? No! No, you wouldn't! And I don't think I need to explain, again, I genuinely don't think I need to explain again why getting a culmination of a bunch of people's Reddit posts, tweets, and like maybe one verifiable source in there, and then squinching all those together and then throwing that at the user and saying, alright, this is your info. Like, I don't get it. And I'm going to throw this out there too, right? I'm going to throw this out there with Gemini usage on YouTube, because you can actually ask Gemini to summarize a YouTube video. Here's a question for you. Why the fuck did you click on a YouTube video if you don't actually care about it? If you don't care about the subject, or if you don't care about watching the video, why the fuck did you watch that? Why the fuck did you click on it and then just say, could you summarize this for me, please? Please summarize this? It doesn't fucking get you anywhere. It really fucking doesn't. Just sit your ass down and watch the video. You're fine. And on another note, as you can see here, when Gemini was introduced, one of the things that this chatbot did was use my Messages app on my phone and then send me a thing saying, hello, I'm Gemini, and this is what I do. And do you want to know what happened with that? It charged me for that text. I got charged for that. I got charged according to my phone's phone plan. That actually made my messages tick up by 1, right? Because I'm on a plan in which I pay for what I use. And I don't think I need to explain why it's a bad thing that some random chatbot that was integrated into your text messages app, against your own will, by the way, has decided to text you again against your own will, and then your phone services decides, you know what? According to our plan, this is a text message, and therefore, you should be charged for that text message. Even though this was a while back, I'm still really fucking pissed about this. I didn't fucking ask for this. I didn't ask for ChatGPT in my fucking text messages. If I did, then I would have opted into some type of a beta, or I would have opted into some type of a system, right? But instead, now I have to go out of my way to block Gemini in my Messages app and just never interact with it. And by the way, it was really hard to get a picture of this message because every single time that I tried to get a picture of this message, it kept opening up a random thing that said, you should use Gemini in your text messages. And then whenever I closed that dialog box, it would open up another one, say the same thing, and then when I closed that one, it would just close the messages app. So it was kind of a pain in the ass to get this old fucking picture, by the way. Alright, look, I know that it has been 44 minutes already, and I understand that I have said quite a bit, so here's what I'm going to do, alright? We're going to take a little bit of an intermission. If you want to go make yourself a sandwich, feel free. It would be preferable if you, you know, just kind of took care of yourself while I am waiting for the time to tick down. So again, feel free to take a little bit of an intermission, because this next part will also be pretty damn long. This is probably going to be the longest video on my channel. Oh my god. Alright, have you gotten your sandwich, your chips, your soda, maybe your beer? Whatever you decided to eat or drink, that's none of my business, right? And so let's get back into our little episode. So, Gemini I have already talked about, and I have already talked about at length how much it pisses me off, and how much it pisses me off that Google has just kind of shoehorned this into every single sort of app that it has without your consent and without your willingness to participate. And that goes a little bit into the enshittification of Android. So let's talk a little bit about Android as a platform and as a mobile service or operating system for your phone. Hey, didn't I just make an episode talking about operating systems? Now, obviously, Android as a platform is just being completely fucking ravaged by both Google Assistant and Gemini, and I can get into Google Assistant later, but let's more so talk about a recent policy that is being proposed at Google and for Android devices. So, okay, let's start off with this, right? What was a major reason people were buying Androids? Was it because it's a lot more customizable than an iPhone? Yeah. I mean, that's a big part of it. Is it because you can, is it because it's a lot simpler to use than an iPhone in some cases? I mean, yeah, it actually kind of is in a lot of cases, right? Is it because you can access specific developer settings? Yeah, I mean, a lot of people care about that with their phone. Is it because it's not constantly connected to Apple services and doesn't require a bunch of random proprietary bullshit for stuff to work? I mean, yeah, that's a reason to use Android. It's basically like a pocketed Linux distro. Now, what was the major reason a lot of people used Android? Aside from the fact that Android phones were cheap, what is the major reason? Well, the major reason a lot of people use Android is the fact that it's not a walled garden, right? You might have heard of the term, which is the walled garden of Apple, and what this essentially means, right? The walled garden of Apple is essentially, you get this cool, sleek looking little device, but you have to play by our rules. And you have to specifically only play by our rules. You cannot play by other people's rules, or else you are not part of the walled garden of Apple. Again, you would jailbreak your phone back in the day to be able to get out of the walled garden of Apple. Here's the thing, though, is that Google is starting to do the same thing. And you might be wondering, Techmo, why the fuck did you go into this walled garden of Apple stuff if you're talking about Android? Well, let me explain. Let me explain something that you can do on Android right now that you can't do on iPhones with the exception of jailbreaking. So, something that you are just able to do natively on an Android is sideload an APK. Now, you might be wondering, sideload an APK? What does that mean? Well, essentially, you can use a third-party application, or you can just run APKs natively on your phone. So, an APK is an Android package. It is essentially what your apps are on your Android phone, and if you're using an iPhone, it's an IPA. So, the APK format is basically a glorified zip file that has a bunch of information relating to your app in there. And that is essentially what an APK is. So, let me put it this way. You can download a random app from the internet without needing to go through the Google Play Store and without needing to use any other sort of web stores or anything along those lines. And you can just run it on your phone. You can just sideload it. Right? And that's a great thing. In my opinion, that's a great thing. And I understand, like, listen, if you fuck up and you download something malicious, then that's on you, buddy. You as the user, assume the risk of downloading a random fucking program and then running it. However, Google right now is floating around the idea, and is honestly, it seems like they're really trying to get involved with doing that, which is getting rid of the ability to sideload APKs on newer versions of Android and on newer Android phones. And this is a problem. This is a genuine fucking problem. Because what this does is, 1, it gets rid of developer freedom, 2, it gets rid of consumer freedom, and 3, it makes it a lot more like Apple, and it basically gets rid of a large chunk of a reason why to use an Android over an iPhone. So this can do a lot of damage. I'm not going to say it's going to kill the Android, but it's going to do a lot of damage to both it and its reputation. And as a person who utilizes an Android, and as a person who really enjoys using Android OS, it kind of fucking sucks. I'm not gonna lie, it does fucking suck. Because if I decide to get a new phone in the future, if I decide that I'm going to get a new phone, and I want a new version of Android, and there's like some new features on there that I really want, but I can't sideload an APK, that's a problem. That is a genuine problem. And again, just like I said, I cannot believe I'm about to say this, I would not blame people for going to iPhones. I really wouldn't. How can you, when you have something along these lines, right? When you have some big old company basically grabbing your device and saying, no, you can't do this with your device that you purchased. Motherfucker, I purchased this device and I opted into your system. I understand that you have control over your own system, but god damn it, don't fucking take away my own freedoms to do that. My own freedoms to use my goddamn device. Imagine if Microsoft walked in, grabbed your 360, put a bug in there, and then said, alright, well, you have to use this. You have to. You're not allowed to do anything about it either. Imagine that. It's just fucked up. It's fucked up. It's evil. You shouldn't be doing things like that. Also, Android for the longest time has had these weird split branches that just are... I don't even need to talk about the Samsung version of Android. It just sucks. It sucks. It's not great. It's way more limited than regular-ass Android, and I'm tired of people acting like it's not. But I'm getting ahead of myself on that one. Look, the point is that Google, with this type of change, is going out of their way to take away your freedom as a developer or as a user. That's it. That end of story. That's it. There's nothing else to even say about that, right? And going back to an earlier thing I was about to say is that Android is kind of being thrashed right now by both Google Assistant and Gemini. Now, I've talked extensively about Gemini. I'm going to talk a little bit about Google Assistant. Google Assistant is just really fucking annoying. It's fucking annoying, and I don't like it, and I wish it would just shut the fuck up. I genuinely wish it would just leave me the fuck alone. I don't get it. I don't get it. I try to power off my phone doesn't power off. Instead, you want to know what happens? Sometimes Google Assistant will just appear. Why? Probably because my phone case mashes a couple of buttons together, but also because there's a random fucking button combination that's right next to your camera button combination, depending on what phone you have, that can just open that shit up. Now, because of this, there have been multiple times in which I basically caught Google Assistant listening to me for an extended period of time without me knowing it, because my phone was in my pocket, and because I tried to shut off my phone, I don't know, Google Assistant just decided to pop up for no fucking reason. And Google Chrome runs like shit on there, and you can't remove Google Chrome, by the way. Android becomes more and more bloated with every single fucking update. Android becomes more and 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 more bloated every single time. I swear to God, every single time it updates, it's just bloated. Now, you might be wondering, Techmo, why did you say more that many times? Shut the fuck up. Now, I also hear you ask, Techmo, what do you mean by it's bloating up your phone? Is it as bad as the Windows 10/Windows 11 thing that you mentioned in the last episode? Well, yes and no, right? Because at least with most of this bloat, you can get rid of it. With most of this bloat, you can actually get rid of a lot of it, right? Like, a good example, I was given TikTok for no reason. I didn't ask for TikTok. I didn't want TikTok. But guess what? I had it anyways, and I could just uninstall that, because that is what you should be able to do with your phone when you have a program on there that you don't want. You should just be able to remove it. And the thing about the bloat with every update. So let me give you a couple of examples. One, I had updated my phone from Android 12 to Android 13 a while back, right? This was a while ago, and do you want to know what happened? After I removed TikTok the first time, this next update decided to give me TikTok again. And I do not want TikTok on my phone, because I know for a fact that I will never get anything done if I do that. If I keep that app on my phone. If I keep it there, my little ADHD brain will just go fucking nuts on it, okay? And for another thing I want to bring up is that I had updated from Android 13 to Android 14. And do you want to know what happened? I got WhatsApp. I don't have a WhatsApp account. I don't have any use for WhatsApp. I didn't want WhatsApp. If I wanted WhatsApp, I would go to the Google Play Store and download WhatsApp. But guess what? This random fucking update decided, yeah, you know what? We're going to download this random app that this user has never given a fuck about and has never used. That's a great idea. That's a wonderful idea, actually. And I'm dreading any other future updates because, oh god, I'm going to have to start uninstalling a few extra apps. And look, I get it. I'm happy that you're giving me more security features. I'm happy that you're giving me more stuff to have going on with my phone. I'm really glad that it's making my phone run better, or it's using resources more efficiently, etc., etc. I don't give a fuck about getting WhatsApp through your shit-ass update. I don't care. I really don't. So here's the thing, right? I have talked extensively about bloat, and bloat that I don't want. And there is now a process called de-Googling your phone. It's essentially the same thing as jailbreaking an iPhone at this point. And de-Googling your phone essentially means that you just cut it off from Google. You cut it off from Google, you cut it off from Google services, etc., right? You de-Google your phone. And here's the thing, right? Is like you can do that. It's a bit of a process, but it is possible. It's not like the world's most impossible task. However, something I do want to bring up, and going back to bloat, and going back to de-Googling your phone, right, is this. Let me pull up my phone right now. I'm looking at my phone at the moment, right? And there is a bunch of, there's my apps. There's a bunch of apps there. And then there is a specific folder called Google. Right? Let's take a look at what's in here. Google Assistant, never used. Google Chrome, I've used that. Google Drive, I've used that. Gmail, I've used that. Google as a search engine, I've used that begrudgingly. Google One, Google TV, never used either of those. Maps, Google Maps, I've used Google Maps. Google Meet, I don't like using Google Meet. I've used it once on my phone. Google Photos, I mean, that's at this point, that's your photo browser. That's your camera roll. YouTube, I don't like the YouTube app, but I've used it. And YouTube Music. I don't use this. So let's take a look here. Google Assistant, to me, is bloat. I want to get rid of it, but I can't because it's integrated into the phone. It's embedded into the operating system. Google One, I don't have any reason to use that, but guess what? It's embedded into the operating system. I can't get rid of it. Google TV, I don't need that. It's embedded. YouTube Music, let's see. Is this embedded? Yeah, that's embedded. I can't get rid of YouTube Music. Even if I tried. Google Meet, I don't use that. I want to get rid of it. It's bloat. All of this is just bloat. And it's Google endorsed bloat. Not even Google endorsed bloat, it's Google developed bloat. And the fact that I can't just de-bloat that because for some reason Google decided, yeah, this is mission critical that you have our software on our phone that you bought. Like, I just... It makes me feel like I don't even own my fucking phone. It makes me feel like I don't even own my fucking phone, and it makes me feel like that my phone is still somehow Google property or Motorola property with Google stamped on there. It's disgusting and I hate it. And that leads me into discussing the YouTube app. The YouTube app sucks. I hate it. I do not like the YouTube app. I don't like the YouTube app, and YouTube in the browser on phone is horrific. It's damn near impossible to get to unless you use an incognito browser, right? It's almost impossible to utilize anything YouTube based on your phone without it launching the fucking app, and I hate it. I really do. I cannot stand how broken the YouTube app is, how just it's a sloppy fucking app. It really is. It's a disgusting little sloppy fucking app. And I do not like it. I don't need to say that anymore. But now that we're on the topic of YouTube, let's talk about YouTube as a service. Oh yeah, it's that time. It's the time where I criticize the same platform that I just uploaded this video and previous videos on. So, YouTube, let me make something very clear. YouTube has been a constant in my life for as long as I can remember. YouTube has been... It's just been the video sharing platform, and it always has been, and I don't see it ever really dissipating in any real regards, right? Mostly because they kind of just have a monopoly on video sharing websites, because, let's be honest, Dailymotion is horrible, and Vimeo I think you need to pay for. Look, let me just state it like this. The competition is simply just not there. It doesn't exist. There is no real competition with YouTube, and the only competition that really did exist with YouTube was... oh god, I cannot believe I'm about to mention this platform, LiveLeak. That was the only other video sharing website that people actually went to, and it wasn't for the type of content that you would normally want to watch. Obviously. Now look, I'm not gonna sit there and be like, oh, YouTube's UI used to look so cool, except it totally was a lot better than what we have now. And I'm not gonna sit there and be like, oh man, it was really cool that you could use your own HTML elements to personalize your own page on YouTube, even though that was really, really fucking cool. But I digress. Look, the point is that the reason why YouTube is bad is not because old UI good and channel customization good, but more so, YouTube has gone from great to just abysmal overnight. And, well, I shouldn't say overnight. This was obviously a very long process, but you get the point that I'm trying to make. It feels like it was overnight. Now, again, between Gemini's shit fucking feature being put into the corner of every YouTube video, where you can ask the AI about the video, or you can have the AI summarize the video for you. Again, why the fuck are you on YouTube? Dude, I don't know. At that point, I don't know. But also, on top of that, right? Aside from just having that feature, it also, yeah, did severely downgrade its UI. It gave users a lot less choices at the end of videos for what kind of content they're looking for. Note how whenever you watch a video all the way through, anytime you do, guess what happens? Instead of showing 12 videos, which is what it used to do, it now just shows 3. And most of the time, it's probably something you've either already watched or something that the algorithm is directly trying to just spoon-feed you because it thinks you would watch that type of content. Also, I know I keep going back to Gemini, but I keep finding out more and more and more about it, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. So, Gemini, in YouTube specifically, also has a feature in which you can gain inspiration for your videos, and I'm using massive air quotes. I know you can't see that, but what they effectively do is they just generate a bunch of thumbnails and then generate a random-ass title and then say, alright, it's time for us to do this. So, for example, a buddy of mine who I work with every once in a while, and a buddy of mine who I moderate a server for, was telling me about a feature that YouTube has with their inspiration sort of thing. And let me read out some of these names for you. Deciphering the lost source code of Deus Ex. Okay. Dissecting the beta versus final game debate. I don't know what that's even supposed to mean, but sure. Exploring cut content. Morrowind's hidden world. Is there even a hidden world in Morrowind? I think Skyrim has the entirety of Morrowind's island in it, but that's the closest that I can think of to that. I mean, I don't think Morrowind has a hidden world, and I'm pretty sure if it did, people would have found it by now. Reviving unused Half-Life 2 particle systems. Okay. I think that's an AI-generated gravity gun? I can't tell. I can't tell. I really can't. Or unearthing lost Half-Life 2 Combine beta animations. And it's... Look, the point that I'm trying to make is that this is... The AI is trying its damnedest to just give people slop. It's going out of its way to do that. And the fact that it's even a feature in YouTube, which is just the generate me a bunch of slop titles and a bunch of slop thumbnails, the fact that there is just like a button for that, like that's... man, I can't tell. I like, on one hand, I want to only blame Google for this, but on the other hand, there are people who probably actually use this fucking feature and are too lazy to come up with a thumbnail idea. Even if it's a bad thumbnail, I will respect a bad thumbnail over an AI-generated thumbnail. Or they're either too lazy to come up with a thumbnail or they're too lazy to come up with a video idea. And that's scary, especially when you also have people doing AI-based narrations and AI-based animations. It's... I don't know where else to go with that. It's just kind of repugnant. It's kind of just gross to look at. I don't... Like, how can you be that creatively bankrupt? You want to, if you're trying to get on YouTube, it shouldn't be about trying to gank an algorithm. It should really be about putting your own voice out. Why the fuck do you think I am this content with having 261 subscribers? Why do you think I'm, like, actually content to have that amount of people watching my stuff? Because I know that there are people who actually care about what I have to say as a person and not what some AI is reading off just because it just, I don't know, wanted to read... Not even wanted to read it off, because somebody made it read off a bunch of random stuff that the AI doesn't understand. The AI doesn't know what it's doing. The AI doesn't understand what message it's trying to convey, what tone it's trying to put out. It doesn't understand anything. And again, I'm trying not to make this like a big rant about AI, because there is an entirely different video that I could make talking about this, but the fact that it's being integrated into YouTube's creative side, that's where I have a problem. That is where I have a massive problem. Anyways, let's keep going. Let's keep going into YouTube. And so with YouTube, right? So YouTube also has two other little segments that they have that are little partitions of the app itself. So you have the YouTube app and you have the YouTube website. Well, then you have YouTube Gaming. I don't know anybody who actually uses YouTube Gaming, but okay, it exists. YouTube Music, I know like one person that uses YouTube Music, maybe. And I would say YouTube Shorts, but YouTube Shorts is just integrated into the app. I don't even know if there is a separate app for YouTube Shorts. And if there is, then... okay, well, it looks like I've got some egg on my face then. So, the point that I'm trying to make is that YouTube itself is also falling apart. It has been falling apart for a long time. And there are plenty of useless features that are also in there that are just kind of there to exist. Like YouTube Playables. I don't know anybody who... like, if you wanted to play mobile game slop, then you would just go to the Google Play Store and download mobile game slop. And you would shamelessly do it. You really would. Like, that's the whole point of a mobile game. You have it with you and it continuously saves your progress all the time. Not saying that YouTube Playables don't. I don't know if they do or not. But, like... I don't understand. YouTube is a video sharing website. It's a video sharing platform. It should just be like that. And look, I could go on and on about this subject because it does kind of lead into the homogeneity of the internet as well. But that will probably in and of itself also be its own episode, because right now people only go to 3 fucking websites, and oh my god, the more and more I talk about this, the more and more burned out that I get, specifically talking about YouTube. So you know what? We're gonna cap this off. We're gonna cap this off, and you might be wondering, how are we gonna cap this off? Well, have you ever heard of the Google Graveyard? Yeah, the Google Graveyard. So Google Graveyard is a giant list of every single service they've ever had that they have killed off. And I'm not going to read every single one of these, but I'm going to just go down a decent list, and you can get the idea of the fact that Google is also a company that just buys up a bunch of shit, or they make a bunch of shit, they prototype it for like a year, and then they delete it forever, and then there's no recourse for that. They just make a service, they kill it, and then they move on to the next. And there are plenty, and I really do mean like plenty of services in which they did that. Hell, I even talked about one of them on my channel a long time ago when I was talking about Google Stadia. Alright everybody, now I know exactly what you're thinking. Alright, no, we're not going to be doing any seances here, even though there are probably a lot of different services in here that you really enjoyed and that you really, really, really liked to use. No, we are not legally allowed to perform a seance in the Google Graveyard. Alright, so let's take a look at some of these, shall we? Google Street View. Does anybody remember that one from 2010 to 2023? What about Google Stadia? Yep, Google... wow, that one was almost 3 years ago. That's actually really crazy. YouTube Originals. Remember that? Remember YouTube Originals? Or what about Google Surveys? Remember that? Or Google Hangouts? The old version of Google Sites. What about Google My Maps or Google Toolbar? What about Google Backup and Sync? Google Bookmarks? Remember that? There was Google Cardboard. I really remember that one. Google Play Music? Playground AR? Google Photos Print? Google Station, Google Contributor, Androidify, Google Fiber TV, Chromecast. Oh man, and this one I actually kind of missed because I would love to go back and try to annotate some of my old videos. Y'all remember YouTube video annotations? Remember that really good feature that existed? Sure, it was a little annoying sometimes, but like, you have no idea how much I miss annotations sometimes. I used to think that they were annoying as hell, but honestly, I kind of really miss them sometimes. Look, the point is that Google is addicted to killing a lot of things. They are addicted to trying to force AI, and more specifically Gemini, into every aspect of your life, even if that means making their own products practically deprecated. And when I say practically deprecated, again, try to search anything specific or niche on Google. It's pretty fucking difficult to get straightforward information that isn't just from some random guy on Twitter. And on top of that, YouTube is broken. Look, okay, just Chrome is broken, Google's broken, YouTube is broken, everything is an AI-riddled mess. And honestly, I think it's almost kind of fucking time to just stop using Google, man. As hard as that sounds, and I get it, that sounds very difficult, but like, it really has been kind of a failed project. At this point, Google is a failed project, not in a monetary sense or in a business sense, but in a user applicable sense. It's not at all easy for the user to really even utilize the internet anymore. It's actually pretty damn difficult when you try to look for anything very specific and narrowed in on one specific subject. Unless you're like perusing multiple different websites and trying to like skim through each little bit of information as you can. Look, I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but Google is kind of forcing the rest of the internet to comply by its rules, and the fact that nobody has done anything and no regulation has ever really been put in place for Google, and whenever there is regulation put in place, it's basically a slap on the wrist and somebody saying, no, Johnny, don't do that again. Look, we need genuine, real repercussions for a company like Google deliberately thrashing something like the internet. This great, wonderful, beautiful invention made by us, men, women, and cybernetic dogs all alike. Look, I'm kind of really fucking pissed with what has been going on with the internet. I'm really fucking pissed with how Google has just kind of destroyed everything that has ever mattered in terms of the internet. And I really hope that there are some consequences in the future for these types of actions. I really do. But honestly, knowing America and knowing the fact that we basically live in an unregulated hellhole, and the fact that the internet is just becoming worse and worse and worse and nobody wants to do anything about it, and the fact that the only group that's really even willing to do anything about it is the EFF, and guess what groups have them under their radars? That's right, normally the government and corporations. I don't even know where to fucking go with this at this point. And so I guess I'll just end the video here because, again, Google has just kind of fucking doomed the entire landscape. Wow, that was a very, very long video. And I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you were able to understand basically every single qualm that I have with Google in one way, shape, or form. And if you didn't, then I mean, thank you for watching a 1 hour and 20-minute video, I guess. This has been Techmo Snowspark, signing off. Peace.